Tonight, we drift through the ancient story of the Aeneid, a tale not merely of battles and voyages, but of memory, mourning, and the mythic origins of a civilization that shaped our world. Written by the Roman poet Virgil in the 1st century BCE, the Aeneid is more than just an epic. It is a bridge between worlds, between Greece and Rome, between myth and history, between sorrow and hope. Commissioned under the rule of Augustus, Rome's first emperor, the poem offers a sacred past to a newly unified empire, one that claims its roots not in conquest, but in endurance. At the center of this sweeping tale is Aeneas, a Trojan prince, a reluctant hero, and the mythical forefather of the Roman people. He is not the fiery Achilles, nor the cunning Odysseus. Aeneas carries a different burden, the weight of destiny. Where Greek epics seek glory, the Aeneid searches for meaning. Where Homer's heroes seek home, Aeneas is tasked to build one from scratch for generations yet unborn. We begin in the smoking ruins of Troy, as flames consume the last memories of a fallen city. From there, we will sail with Aeneas across the storm-swept Mediterranean to Carthage, to Sicily, to the gates of the underworld, until at last he reaches the shores of Italy, where new wars await, and a new world must rise. The Aeneid is divided into 12 books. The first half echoes the Odyssey, a journey across sea and soul, and the second half mirrors the Iliad, as Aeneas wages war in a foreign land. But threaded through it all is a quieter story, of longing, of duty, and of the quiet ache of exile. Virgil's Latin verse pulses with order and beauty, dactylic hexameter, like the rhythm of oars on a wide ocean. Tonight, we will not speak Latin, but we will honor its music. We will tell this story slowly, as if unfolding a scroll beside a hearth, letting each image settle like soft dust over your thoughts. You may drift off as we go, that's perfectly all right. The story will carry on like a river at night, moving gently forward, repeating its rhythms. When you wake, Aeneas will still be walking the shores of myth. This journey is yours too, not just across lands and legends, but across time and memory. So take a deep breath, let the past come softly, and let us begin with the fall of a city and the rise of a story. The city of Troy is burning. Ash hangs in the air like snow. The cries of the dying echo between the marble colonnades and shattered gates. Spears rattle, bronze clangs against shield, and the temples of gods tremble in the glow of firelight. This is no ordinary night, it is the end of an age, and yet it is also the beginning of another. Aeneas stands amid the wreckage, armor glowing orange in the blaze. A prince of Troy, son of Anchises and the goddess Venus, he had fought bravely through 10 years of siege. But the Greeks have won. They came in the belly of a wooden horse, not through the gates, but through deception. Now, the city collapses not in battle, but in betrayal. Virgil begins his epic not at the beginning of the war, but at its end. We meet Aeneas as he recalls, like a dream, the final hours of his homeland. The Trojan people had celebrated what they thought was peace. The Greeks had vanished from their camps, leaving behind a towering wooden horse as a supposed offering to the goddess Minerva. Despite warnings most notably from Laocoon, who utters the famous line, "Beware of Greeks bearing gifts," the Trojans drag the horse into the city. That night, as the city sleeps, the Greek warriors hidden inside the horse descend. They open the gates to their comrades, who had sailed back under cover of darkness. Chaos follows. As Aeneas sleeps in his chambers, the ghost of Hector, Troy's greatest defender, appears to him. He is pale, bloodied, barely whole. Hector tells Aeneas, "The city is falling. You must escape. You must carry Troy in your hands and build it anew." Aeneas wakes to find smoke choking the streets. The palace is under siege. The temples are overrun. In the flickering gloom, he takes up arms, still unsure whether to fight or flee. He meets his companions and rushes through the alleys of the city. They reach the royal palace, where King Priam, old and weary, tries to don armor. In a moment both tragic and tender, Priam is killed by Pyrrhus, the son of Achilles, even as he pleads beside his son's corpse. Aeneas sees this, and something within him shifts. He turns his thoughts to his own family, to his father Anchises, too old to walk unaided, to his young son Ascanius, barely 10 years old, and to his wife, Creusa. He rushes through the smoky ruins to his home. At first, Anchises refuses to leave, too proud, too old, too broken. But then a miracle appears. A flame encircles the head of Ascanius, yet does not harm him. And in the sky, a comet streaks past a sign from the gods. Aeneas lifts his father upon his shoulders. He takes his son by the hand. Creusa follows behind. Together, they make their way toward the city gates, toward exile, toward the unknown. But amid the confusion and terror, Creusa vanishes. Aeneas turns back. He searches the ruins, calls out her name, retraces his steps. At last, her ghost appears to him, calm and radiant. She tells him not to grieve, her fate lies elsewhere. She bids him go on to Italy, where a new destiny awaits. Outside the ruins of Troy, Aeneas gathers the few survivors, warriors, families, craftsmen, and priests. They build makeshift shelters, perform rites for the dead, and look out across the sea. The world they knew has ended, but the gods are not finished with them yet. Aeneas receives a vision. In it, Jupiter himself speaks. You are destined to found a new city, a city that will become the seed of an empire. Sail west, across the sea, until you reach the land of Italy. It is a task that Aeneas does not choose, it is one placed upon him. Here, we encounter a central theme of the Aeneid. Pietas, a Roman virtue roughly translated as duty or devotion. Aeneas does not act out of personal ambition. He acts for the gods, for his people, for his lineage. He carries not only his father on his back, but the memory of Troy and the promise of Rome. They build ships and sail from the coast of Asia Minor. At every stop along the journey, Aeneas is tested by storms, by omens, by the pain of what has been lost. They reach Thrace, where they attempt to found a settlement, but the land is cursed. The roots bleed when pulled from the ground. The spirit of a fallen Trojan, Polydorus, warns them to leave. In Delos, they consult the oracle of Apollo. The god's cryptic message tells them to seek the land of their ancestors. Anchises interprets this as the island of Crete, but a plague forces them away. Wandering again, they land in the Strophades Islands ruled by the Harpies, foul bird women who curse them. One Harpy prophesies, "You will reach your promised land, but only when hunger drives you to eat your very tables." They travel onward to Epirus, where Aeneas is shocked to find another Trojan, Helenus now king of a small refuge. From him, they learn more. They must sail to Italy, but avoid certain coasts. They must visit the Sibyl of Cumae. They must prepare for war. At every stage, the story weaves myth into geography, memory into journey. The Mediterranean becomes a sea of symbols, each island a mirror, each port a shadow of what was and what is to come. By the end of this chapter, Aeneas has become more than a refugee. He is a vessel of culture, of prophecy, of memory. His name will one day echo not just in poetry, but in the very identity of Rome itself. And yet, he is still very human. He mourns his wife. He doubts his path. He looks to the stars not with triumph, but with uncertainty. Virgil does not give us a flawless hero. He gives us a man in the middle of a story too large for him to fully understand. And in that, we find something quietly profound. The gods do not grant Aeneas comfort. They grant him purpose. And so, he sails on. As we leave the coast behind and drift into the next phase of the journey, let your breath soften. Let the winds of the old world fade. And let us now turn toward the west, toward a queen, a city of promise, and a love that burns too bright. Aeneas's ships glide across the darkening sea, their sails billowing like the wings of birds migrating through myth. The stars above flicker with ancient purpose, but suddenly they vanish swallowed by storm. The goddess Juno, ever hostile to the Trojans, sends a tempest to scatter them. The heavens roar, lightning tears the sky, the sea rises like a living beast. Aeneas grips the prow of his ship as waves crash over the deck, and just as all seems lost, Neptune intervenes. With a word, the god calms the waters. The storm relents. The surviving ships, 7 in all, limp toward the nearest safe harbor, a cove along the coast of North Africa. They have reached an unfamiliar but fateful place. The land is Carthage. The Trojans disembark, weary and grateful. They enter a forested path that leads them to a construction site, a city still being born. They see walls being raised, harbor docks forming, temples and houses springing up in orderly rows. Carthage is a place of vision and of ambition. Its queen Dido is a figure of grace and strength. A widow who fled the cruel murder of her husband in her native Tyre, she has founded a new home here on the African coast. Like Aeneas, she is shaped by exile. Like Aeneas, she seeks a future carved from sorrow. As the Trojans arrive, they are welcomed warmly. Aeneas, revealed by his mother Venus through a gentle trick of disguise, enters Dido's court in radiant beauty, like a god among mortals. Dido is struck, not just by admiration, but by recognition. She sees in him a kindred soul. A feast is held in the rising palace of Carthage. Tapestries hang from golden rafters. Incense perfumes the air. Musicians play softly as goblets pass from hand to hand. Dido turns to Aeneas and asks him gently, curiously, to tell his story. The room quiets. And so, Aeneas recounts the fall of Troy, the wooden horse, the ghost of Hector, the blazing city, his father on his back, his wife lost to the smoke. He speaks of wanderings of cursed lands, prophetic harpies, and visions from the gods. As he speaks, Dido listens, not only with her ears, but with her heart. The thread of fate tightens between them. As days pass, Dido's affection for Aeneas deepens. She is not alone in this. Venus, wishing to protect her son, ensures that Dido's love intensifies. Cupid, disguised as Ascanius, breathes a divine longing into her. One day, during a royal hunt, a storm erupts sudden and fierce. Dido and Aeneas take shelter together in a cave, while their entourages scatter. There, in the hush of rain and shadow, their love is sealed. Though Virgil never speaks the word marriage, Dido believes it so. For a moment, it seems destiny has shifted. Aeneas no longer wanders. Carthage becomes a second Troy, and Dido a second wife. But fate is not so easily changed. Far above, Jupiter watches with measured concern. The founder of Rome delays his task. His people remain in limbo. He sends Mercury, wing-footed messenger of the gods, to speak to Aeneas. The god descends in light and wind. He finds the Trojan prince walking among the new buildings of Carthage, and in a voice like distant thunder, he speaks. "You are wasting your time, Aeneas. Italy awaits. Your destiny is not here. You must leave." Aeneas is shaken. Torn between love and duty, he prepares the ships in secret. But secrets rarely stay hidden. Dido discovers his plans. She confronts him beneath the open sky. Her voice trembles not with rage alone, but with despair. "Is it truly me you are leaving? Was it all false, the vows, the embrace, the hope? Am I nothing more than a port in your storm?" Aeneas stands silent. Then he speaks, not coldly, but with the calm gravity of someone bound by forces beyond love. "I never promised marriage. I do not leave of my own will. The gods call me. Italy calls me. If I could choose, I would stay. But choice has little weight against the tides of fate. Dido watches as the Trojans prepare to leave. She builds a great pyre in the city square. She says it is to burn Aeneas's gifts. That night, as the ships slip into the horizon, she climbs the pyre, curses Aeneas's name, and with a final, anguished cry, falls upon her own sword. Her sister screams, the city weeps, and from the smoke the future darkens. Aeneas, far offshore, sees the glow but does not understand. The gods shield him from the full knowledge of her death for now. The sea is calm, the stars are bright, but a shadow clings to the sails. The memory of Dido will haunt Aeneas long after her flames go dark. In future days, her ghost will rise before him, silent and wounded, and Carthage will remember. In Rome's future, Dido's final cry, "May there be war between our peoples forever," will echo in the Punic Wars centuries later. The personal becomes political, the intimate becomes immortal. The story of Dido and Aeneas is not simply a tragic love tale. It is a meditation on choice, on duty, and on the human cost of destiny. Virgil paints Dido with compassion. She is not a mere obstacle to the hero's journey. She is a queen, a builder, a lover, and a warning. And Aeneas, for all his strength, is not immune to sorrow. He carries her memory with him like a hidden scar. In the world of the Aeneid, there are no easy endings. Love does not conquer fate, and yet it leaves a mark, one that shapes empires. As we drift now from the warm coasts of Africa to the ancient shores of Sicily, let the sea breeze soothe your thoughts. We leave behind fire and passion. Ahead lies prophecy and a descent into shadow. The wind carries Aeneas and his companions onward. They leave behind the smoldering memory of Carthage and arrive once more upon the shores of Sicily, that ancient and haunted land where gods and mortals intertwine. It is here, at the base of Mount Etna, that Aeneas honors the memory of his father, Anchises, with funeral games and offerings. The land is sacred. The tomb of Anchises lies beneath the open sky, and Aeneas, with quiet reverence, pours libations of wine and milk, scattering flowers over the resting place of the man who guided him from Troy. But the winds soon shift. The call of destiny is insistent, and it leads them now to the Italian mainland, to a place older than myth, darker than legend. Aeneas lands at Cumae. In the shadowed hills of Cumae, nestled among craggy rocks and sacred groves, stands a temple to Apollo. Golden and ancient, it gleams with the power of prophecy. Inside, beneath vaulted ceilings and bronze reliefs, lives the Cumaean Sibyl, a seeress of immense power and eerie calm. The Sibyl is no ordinary oracle. She is the mouth of the god Apollo, speaking in riddles, trembling with divine fire. Her eyes burn not with passion, but with vision. Aeneas approaches her with offerings and prayers. He asks, with humility, to be shown the way forward to understand what Italy holds for him and how he may fulfill the will of the gods. But the Sibyl does not answer directly. She warns him, "You seek to enter the underworld, the land of shadows, of memory, and of fate. Few have passed through and returned, but you may if you find the golden bough." The golden bough is no mere trinket. It is a sacred token, a branch with golden leaves hidden in the dark forest nearby. It is the key that opens the gate to the underworld, and it will only be found by one who is truly fated to enter. Aeneas ventures into the thick woods, guided by doves sent by his mother, Venus. The air is still. The light grows dim. And then there, glimmering among the shadows, he sees it. A branch of gold, shimmering like captured sunlight, swaying without wind. He plucks it, reverently. The forest seems to sigh. Now the path opens. At the mouth of a deep cavern, hidden in the rock face near the temple, the Sibyl leads Aeneas to the entrance of the underworld. They offer sacrifice, black sheep to the gods of shadow, prayers to Hecate, and incantations lost to common speech. The ground trembles, the air grows cold, and then the gate opens. Together, they step into darkness. The descent is not sudden. It is slow, spiraling, and surreal. The air thickens. The light fades. They move past ghosts and murmurs, into a world ruled not by the sun, but by memory. They pass the river Acheron, its waters black and slow. Beside the river stands Charon, the grim ferryman. His beard is wild. His eyes are glowing coals. He guides souls across the river, but only those who are properly buried, who carry the coin upon their tongue. Many spirits hover on the near shore, unable to cross. Among them are the unburied, those who died without rites, their bodies lost to sea or wilderness. They cry out, but Charon turns them away. The Sibyl holds up the golden bow. At once, Charon nods. He knows this sign. With a gesture, he allows them aboard. The boat rocks gently. The waters ripple with whispers. On the far shore, a massive shadow waits Cerberus, the three-headed hound of Hades, snarls with eyes of flame and mouths of hunger. But the Sibyl has come prepared. She throws a cake laced with honey and soporific herbs. Cerberus sniffs it, devours it, and slumps into slumber. They pass. Soon they reach the fields of mourning, where those consumed by tragic love wander endlessly. There among the spectral trees walks Dido, silent and pale. Aeneas sees her. He reaches out. Dido, I never meant to hurt you. I was bound by the gods. But she does not speak. She turns away, vanishing into mist, returning to the shade of her former husband. The path moves on. Next, they come to the gates of Tartarus, the region of punishment. Great walls rise, surrounded by fire and guarded by the fury Tisiphone. The cries of the damned echo like wind through iron. The Sibyl does not let Aeneas enter. She explains instead what lies within. Tyrants, traitors, the greedy and the violent all face justice here. The underworld remembers. All deeds are weighed. All fates are earned. This is not cruelty. It is balance. Not all is punishment. Ahead lies Elysium. The path leads to greener fields, filled with light that does not burn, where music plays gently and flowers never fade. This is Elysium, the realm of the righteous, the wise, and the heroic. Here walk poets, philosophers, priests, and warriors. They speak calmly, without grief. Their lives are remembered, and so they endure. Among them, Aeneas finds his father, Anchises. The reunion is tender and still. They embrace like smoke hugging light. Anchises speaks not just of the past, but of the future. Anchises leads his son to a hilltop, where the river Lethe flows, the river of forgetfulness, from which souls drink before rebirth. He shows Aeneas a vision, the future children of Troy, reborn into a new world. There walks Romulus, founder of Rome. There marches Augustus, destined to rule an empire of peace. He names the great generals, the poets, the lawgivers, and the builders who will shape the centuries to come. This is your destiny, Anchises says, not to live for yourself, but to found something greater. Aeneas listens, silent and wide-eyed. The Sibyl gently touches his shoulder. The vision fades. It is time to return. They retrace their steps, passing through shadow and silence. At the river's edge, the boat waits once more. Charon rows without a word. As they emerge from the cavern, light pierces the darkness. The sun rises slowly over the horizon. The temple of Apollo greets them once more. But Aeneas is changed. He has seen beyond life. He has seen Rome before it is born. The descent into the underworld is not a detour, it is the heart of Aeneas's journey. In Virgil's telling, the past, present, and future all reside beneath the earth. Memory and prophecy dwell side by side. In this chapter, the world grows wide. The dead speak with clarity, and Aeneas, the wanderer, becomes the founder. It is a turning point inward and upward. As we rest now beneath the imagined sky of ancient Italy, allow your breath to slow. Let the voices of the Sibyl and Anchises soften into sleep. We move next to the struggle for land and alliance where prophecy meets resistance. The shores of Latium appear beneath a pale morning sun. The Tyrrhenian Sea lies calm behind Aeneas and his weary companions, and before them, a land rich in fields, rivers, and the scent of olive groves. Italy, at last. But peace is never simply given. The Trojan fleet anchors gently near the mouth of the Tiber River. Here, Virgil's story becomes not just one of travel, but of arrival and all the complexity that arrival brings. Inland, nestled among low hills and sacred woods, lies the city of Laurentum, ruled by King Latinus. He is aged and wise, descended from Saturn, the ancient god who once ruled during a golden age of peace. Latinus receives a divine dream. A foreigner is destined to marry his daughter Lavinia, and their union will found a mighty race. When news arrives that strangers have landed on the coast, Latinus suspects this is fate itself knocking at his door. He sends for Aeneas. When the Trojan hero arrives, he comes not with weapons but with olive branches, a sign of peace and diplomacy. Latinus welcomes him, offers him land, and proposes a marriage alliance. Aeneas shall wed Lavinia and inherit a future in Latium. But not all hearts welcome this union. Among the Latins is Turnus, a proud and fiery prince of the Rutulians. He is bold in battle, handsome, and once promised Lavinia's hand by Queen Amata, Latinus's wife. To Turnus, Aeneas is an intruder, a foreigner who steals not only land but love. His anger begins to smolder, and then the gods intervene. Juno, ever bitter toward the Trojans, stirs Turnus's heart with fury. She fans the flames of pride, jealousy, and resistance. She cannot undo fate, but she can delay it, and so she does. Turnus raises arms. The path to peace collapses into the clatter of swords. It begins with a hunted stag. Aeneas's son, Ascanius, kills a tame deer that belongs to a Latin herdsman. The act, though unintentional, ripples like thunder through the land. Latin shepherds, loyal to Turnus, rise in outrage. Skirmishes break out in the fields. Ambassadors fail. Soon, entire tribes are swept into the storm. Volscians, Rutulians, and other neighboring peoples take sides. Latinus, caught between visions and violence, withdraws in sorrow. The war he hoped to prevent now marches across his land. Aeneas, too, must prepare. He journeys upriver to seek allies among the Arcadians, a Greek-descended people who dwell in the wooded hills of Pallanteum, a site that, centuries later, will become the city of Rome itself. King Evander rules this modest settlement. Though his power is small, his spirit is noble, and he welcomes Aeneas warmly. He knows the Trojan name. He knows what the gods have whispered of the future. Evander pledges support. More importantly, he introduces Aeneas to the Etruscans' powerful warriors north of the Tiber, long oppressed by Turnus's allies. They, too, join the Trojan cause. It is a mosaic of alliances woven together by prophecy and necessity. Among Evander's gifts, too, Aeneas is something more personal, his son, Pallas. A young man, brave and noble, eager for battle and glory, Pallas becomes Aeneas's companion and protege. The bond between them grows strong, not of blood, but of purpose. Evander, with trembling voice, entrusts his son's life to Aeneas. Guide him, as you would your own. Let him learn from you the ways of honor and of arms. The weight of this trust hangs heavy. And so, with troops assembled and hopes gathered, Aeneas returns to the battlefield. While Aeneas prepares, Turnus strikes. Bold and swift, he attacks the Trojan camp before their leader returns. The camp lies near the shore, surrounded by ships. In the absence of Aeneas, the Trojans defend themselves fiercely, forming tight ranks and repelling the assault. A moment of eerie magic follows. Turnus attempts to set fire to the Trojan ships, hoping to trap his enemy. But the goddess Cybele, whose sacred pine trees were used to build the ships, intervenes. The vessels transform into sea nymphs, diving into the waters and escaping destruction. Turnus is stunned, but not dissuaded. He rages on. Within the Trojan camp, two young warriors, Nisus and Euryalus, volunteer for a daring night raid. They will sneak through the enemy lines, deliver a message to Aeneas, and if possible, wreak havoc as they go. Their friendship is tender, almost lyrical. They speak softly before setting out, promising to watch over one another, to return together. In the night, they move like shadows, slaying sentries and slipping past tents. But Euryalus, tempted by enemy spoils, lingers too long. His helmet catches the moonlight. The alarm is raised. They are captured. They fight. They fall. When dawn breaks, their heads are displayed on enemy spears. Grief sweeps the Trojan camp. At last, Aeneas returns with his newfound allies. His arrival is like a storm sweeping down from the hills. The battles that follow are fierce and rhythmic, painted in fire and dust. Aeneas leads charge after charge, a force of destiny and discipline. Turnus meets him blow for blow, his rage matched only by his pride. In the chaos, tragedy strikes. Pallas, young and brave, enters the fray. He fights with honor and skill, but fate has its own course. He faces Turnus in single combat. The duel is swift and brutal. Pallas is slain. Turnus in triumph takes the boy's belt, an ornate token, as a trophy. But he has sealed his fate. When news of Pallas's death reaches Aeneas, the grief is absolute. A calm man becomes a storm. In his next battles, Aeneas spares no one. His mercy vanishes, swallowed by sorrow. The war reaches its boiling point. Seeking to end the bloodshed, both sides agree to a temporary truce, a chance to bury the dead. Amid mourning, diplomacy stirs again. Latinus reconsiders. Even Queen Amata, torn by visions and despair, begins to waver. The people suffer. Peace, perhaps, might return. But Juno acts once more. She sends a fury to sabotage the fragile truce. A skirmish breaks out during the ceasefire and war erupts again. The final duel draws near. To end the bloodshed, a challenge is proposed. Aeneas and Turnus shall fight, one-on-one, for Lavinia's hand and the fate of the land. Aeneas agrees. He is not a man of pride, but of duty. Turnus, too, accepts, though fear flickers in his heart. Before the gods, armies watch as the two champions prepare to meet. This chapter is not merely a tale of war. It is a study in complexity, of pride and promise, of alliances and misunderstandings, of what happens when fate collides with fear. Aeneas, the wanderer, becomes Aeneas the commander. Turnus, the rival, becomes a symbol of resistance to change, a man who cannot accept the future shaped by fate. Their paths are about to converge in the most personal of ways. And so, as we let this chapter close, let the drums of war fade softly into the distance. Let the fields of Latium become fields of quiet thought. Rest now, for the final act draws near. We open on a field gripped by silence. The wind no longer carries the cries of soldiers. The clashing of swords is stilled. All of Latium seems to hold its breath. Two armies stand poised on either side of a wide plain, their banners fluttering in the soft morning breeze. Between them, two champions, both sons of destiny. On one side stands Aeneas, the Trojan exile, the man shaped by storms and guided by prophecy. On the other, Turnus, the proud Italian prince, fierce in war and unyielding in pride. What unfolds is more than combat. It is judgment. It is closure. It is the final act of a long, weary journey. The terms are clear. The duel will decide all. Lavinia's hand, the peace of Latium, and the direction of fate itself. Before the gods and gathered warriors, a solemn treaty is made. Latinus presides, visibly weary and worn by the war that has ravaged his kingdom. Queen Amata watches from the walls, her heart torn by fear for Turnus and her daughter. Aeneas prays to Jupiter, offering his sword not for vengeance, but for the fulfillment of divine will. Turnus, too, prays, but with a fire kindled by pride, not peace. As swords are drawn and shields lifted, the skies begin to darken. Even now, with destiny all but sealed, Juno cannot let go. From the heights of Olympus, she watches with dread. Her hatred of the Trojans is ancient and personal. She fears the loss of her favorite people, the Latins, to a foreign bloodline. Desperate to forestall the inevitable, she incites a final act of sabotage. She sends a divine spirit a shadow of fear to provoke the Latins. The result is chaos. A skirmish breaks out before the duel can begin. Arrows fly, soldiers clash. The carefully laid truce shatters in an instant. Aeneas, struck in the thigh by a stray arrow, is carried from the field. Panic threatens to reignite full war. But then, something changes. At last, Jupiter, the king of the gods, intervenes. He summons Juno and confronts her with truth. She cannot change fate. The Trojans will win. Aeneas will marry Lavinia. The line of Rome will rise. But in compassion, Jupiter offers her a concession. The Trojans, he promises, will not erase the Latins. Instead, they will merge their customs, gods, and even language will become one with the people of Italy. The future Roman identity will be a fusion, not a conquest. Satisfied at last, Juno relents. Her fury dissolves like mist in morning sun. She withdraws her hand from the world of men. Peace is no longer delayed. Healed by Venus, Aeneas returns to the field. His wound, bound with herbs and divine care, no longer troubles him. Turnus, alone now, faces the moment he has long feared. The duel begins. Their swords meet with a sound like thunder. Dust swirls around their feet. Spears are cast, shields are splintered. Each blow is guided not just by strength, but by years of burden, hope, and divine command. Turnus fights with valor, but Aeneas fights with destiny. When Turnus's sword shatters a false blade taken in haste, he flees briefly, circling a sacred tree. But Aeneas pursues, relentless as time itself. Finally, the gods intervene again. Turnus receives a fresh sword. The duel resumes. Then comes the fatal moment. Aeneas casts his spear. It pierces Turnus's thigh. The proud warrior falls to the earth with a cry. The plain falls silent once more. Turnus lies at Aeneas's feet, wounded but alive. He lifts his eyes and speaks not with rage, but with surrender. "If I must die," he says, "let it be now. But spare me for the sake of my father. You have won. Lavinia is yours. I ask only for mercy." Aeneas pauses. His sword is drawn. His arm is raised. The moment stretches. He hesitates. He sees Turnus not as an enemy, but as a man, wounded, proud, and human. But then, he notices something. Turnus is still wearing Pallas's belt, the ornate strap he took as a trophy after slaying the young warrior whom Aeneas had sworn to protect. The memory returns in a flood of Pallas's bright youth, of Evander's trust, of the cost of this war. Aeneas's sorrow becomes rage. With a single motion, he drives the sword into Turnus's chest. Turnus dies. There are no cheers, no victory cry, just stillness. Even the gods fall silent. Aeneas stands over the fallen prince, not as a victor, but as a man who has fulfilled a duty at immense personal cost. This is not triumph. It is the end of something ancient, the passing of grief into legacy. The poem ends here abruptly, powerfully, with Turnus's death. Virgil offers no detailed description of the marriage, or the founding of Lavinium, or the long line of kings leading to Romulus and the city of Rome. But history fills in the silence. Aeneas will bury Turnus with honor. He will marry Lavinia. Together they will found a new city, Lavinium, named after her. Their descendants will build Alba Longa, and from that line, generations later, will come Romulus and Remus and the founding of Rome. The Trojans do not conquer the Latins. They become the Latins. And Rome, the vast, complex, eternal city, will remember that it was born not just of war, but of exile, love, loss, and a choice made in the silence after a duel. So now, we step back. From Troy's burning walls to Italy's golden fields, from storm-tossed seas to blood-stained plains, we have followed Aeneas on a journey not only of nations, but of soul. The Aeneid is a story of what it means to endure, to hold on to duty when it costs you joy, to obey fate even when your heart breaks, to carry the ashes of the past and still plant the seeds of a future. It is a Roman story, but it is also a human story. And now, as we let this chapter settle into stillness, let the sounds of armor and argument drift into silence. Let the light of morning touch the ruins, and let peace long delayed, dearly bought, finally fall like sleep upon the land. As the tale of Aeneas draws to its close, what remains is not just the end of a journey, but the birth of a civilization's soul. The Aeneid is more than a story. It is a foundation myth, a poetic cornerstone upon which Rome and later Europe built its sense of destiny, virtue, and identity. And like a gentle echo in a marble hall, its voice never truly fades. When Virgil composed the Aeneid in the final decades of the 1st century BCE, Rome was a city transformed. No longer a republic of senators and citizen soldiers, it had become an empire, vast and fragile, scarred by civil war, and led now by Augustus Caesar, the adopted son of Julius Caesar and the self-styled restorer of peace. Virgil's poem was not just art, it was a message. It offered Rome a noble origin, rooted not in conquest, but in suffering and survival. By tracing Augustus's ancestry to Aeneas, and thus to the gods, the poem gave divine sanction to the new order. And yet, it does not read like propaganda. It is too mournful, too thoughtful, too full of sorrow and unanswered questions. Virgil, like Aeneas, seems to ask, what is the price of building something eternal? From the moment of its first reading, the Aeneid became a cultural compass. In Roman schools, children memorized its lines. Emperors quoted it in speeches. Artists and sculptors carved its scenes into marble, bronze, and wall frescoes. Later, as the Western Roman Empire faded and the Christian world took shape, the Aeneid survived. It was copied in monasteries, studied by monks, and interpreted through new theological lenses. Aeneas's journey came to symbolize the Christian pilgrimage, a soul wandering through trial toward divine light. Dante, in his Divine Comedy, chose Virgil as his guide through the underworld not merely for his poetic genius, but for his moral clarity. And in every generation since, the Aeneid has found new readers, new meanings, and new resonance. Though deeply Roman, the Aeneid is not limited by its geography. Its themes, exile, destiny, sacrifice, and the tension between personal desire and public duty speak across cultures. Aeneas is every person torn between the life they want and the life they must live. Dido is every heart broken by love's departure. Turnus is every proud soul crushed by history. And Lavinia, voiceless and still, is every land and lineage claimed by the tides of fate. It is not a story of clear heroes and villains. It is a story of humans trying to find meaning in the shadow of the divine. Virgil died before finishing the final polish of his epic. In his will, he asked that the manuscript be burned, perhaps because he felt it was imperfect, or perhaps because he feared it would be misused. But Augustus refused. He ordered the poem preserved, edited only lightly, and published to the Roman world. Thus, the Aeneid survived not in pristine form, but in all its raw, aching grandeur. We do not know what Virgil might have changed, but perhaps it is better this way. The jagged ending, the silence after Turnus's death, they invite contemplation. They refuse closure. They let us decide what it all meant. In time, the line between myth and history blurred. Aeneas came to be regarded as a historical figure. His journey was mapped onto real terrain. Shrines to him appeared across Italy. His name was invoked in treaties, genealogies, and imperial rituals. The Julio-Claudian emperors Augustus, Tiberius, Nero claimed direct descent from him through his son, Aeneas. And in the imagination of Rome, Aeneas's story became Rome's story. What began as poetry became prophecy, and then origin. Even long after the empire's fall, the myth endured. Now, as we return from this long and winding journey from the ashes of Troy to the golden fields of Latium, from the whispers of gods to the silence of legacy, we are left with more than a tale. We are left with a mirror. The Aeneid reflects what it means to strive for something greater than oneself, to live in service of a future you may never see, to bear the weight of past sorrows and still walk forward. In the hush of night, as your thoughts begin to soften and your breath slows, perhaps you too can hear it, the rustle of sails on ancient seas, the distant murmur of prophecy, the soft footfall of a traveler carrying the burden of 1,000 years, and the quiet truth that even in loss, there can be legacy. Even in sorrow, there can be meaning. Even in sleep, there can be learning. So let your mind drift now. Let the stars above Italy shine gently in your thoughts. Let Aeneas's long voyage become a dream behind your eyelids, and let the quiet conquest of understanding, of beauty, and of memory carry you into peaceful rest. Good night.